Hello, my name's Sue, and today I'm going to tell you a story called Brave Quest, and it's an Indigenous American myth, and it's taken from a book of legends from around the world by Geraldine McCaughrean. Now, a quest is a journey that someone goes on where they usually have to find someone or something, but quite often it's very challenging and is a test of their character. Now, in this story, there are lots of animals who are really important to the Indigenous American culture. In our story, we have a great bird called an eagle, which you can see there in the frame. We've also got a polecat and a beaver. And on the other side, there'll be a bear and a wolverine in our story. Now, when I talk about the characters living in lodges, you can see these are lodges that are in the framed picture there. Our characters that we're going to meet, there are three main characters. Our first character is called Man of Little. Our second character, who's a female character, is called Marvellous Girl. And later on, we're going to meet Morning Star. Hope you enjoy the story. He had nothing. No parents, no possessions, and no position in the tribe except to be laughed at and jeered at. He had been really handsome once, and because he was handsome in his deeds as well as his words, he'd once saved a little egret, a chick who had fallen out of its nest. And when he put it back into the nest, the eagle birds, the parents, hadn't understood what he was doing and had gouged and gored his face. And so now he was really badly scarred. His real name was Man of Little, but everybody called him Scarface. "Oh, why don't you go and ask Marvellous Girl to marry you?" They jeered and laughed at him. "Oh, go on, we know that you love her." "Oh, you'd make a really good match. Yes, the dove and the crow." And their spite rained down on him like arrows. Well, yes, Scarface did love Marvellous Girl, but yes, of course he did. Everybody loved Marvellous Girl. Braves from tribes 100 miles around would all come and ask for her hand in marriage. They all went away disappointed. How could Scarface even dream about treading in the prints of her moccasin shoes, or even think about paining her by showing her his scarred face? And so he would have never gone near her lodge, but something about the cruelty that had been shown to him stirred the dregs of some old pride in him, and so he found himself approaching her lodge and speaking outside the door. "Marvellous Girl, would you take me to be your husband? If a strong arm and a faithful heart can do you any service, then please marry me. I stand outside in sorrow, for what hope can a boy like me have of love from someone like you? But if love can offer you anything, then I am filled with love for you." To his amazement, instead of hearing a shriek of laughter from inside the lodge, he heard nothing. And then Marvellous Girl's face appeared, as beautiful as the new moon. "I cannot marry anyone, Man of Little," she said, "but if I could marry, then I would gladly marry you, for you are gentle and kind and good." "Why can't you marry?" said Scarface. "Because I am betrothed to the sun." "The sun?" Oh, Scarface bit his lip with jealousy. "Then you are honoured," he said. "I would feel myself more honoured to marry you," said Marvellous Girl. "Then I shall go to the sun and shoot it down," said Scarface. "Shh. Do not anger the sun. But if you dare to go to the sun's lodge and ask him if he would relinquish his claim on me, then maybe he will take pity on us. And when you are there, perhaps you could ask him to heal your scar, and that would show everybody that he relinquishes his claim on me and blesses our marriage. I shall go, said Scarface, and immediately went to pack his things. Though he'd packed a lot of food and drink, he soon used it up. The journey was so long, and he had to eat roots and berries and find water where he could. Though he knew all the paths east of the village, the journey was so long that soon he was walking along paths he didn't know and couldn't recognise. Though he asked everybody, "Where is the Sun Lodge? Where is the Sun's Lodge? Do you know where the Sun's Lodge is?" Soon he didn't know the people he was asking, and then there were no people to ask. And he walked in the wild places that only the animals inhabited. Though he was young and strong, the journey was so long that eventually he felt he could go no further and had to sit down on the ground to rest. A polecat came bobbing along, and Scarface asked him, "Can you tell me where I might find the Sun's Lodge?" "I have never seen the Sun's Lodge in my life," said the polecat. "Why don't you go and ask Bear? Bear is wise. Go and ask Bear." So Scarface got up and he searched out the bear, who was scratching tree trunks and licking the insects off his paws. "Can you tell me where the Sun's Lodge is?" Scarface asked, fearless, for he had nothing to lose. "I have never seen the Sun's Lodge in my life," said Bear. "Why don't you go and ask Beaver? Beaver can get into places that I can't. Beaver may know." So Scarface searched out Beaver, who was busy building a lodge in the lake. "I have never seen the Sun's Lodge," said Beaver. But ask Wolverine. Wolverine is cunning. Ask Wolverine." And so Scarface searched out Wolverine, and Wolverine nodded. "Of course I know where the Sun's Lodge is," he said. "But where's your canoe?" "You won't get across the great waters without a canoe." "Well, I will swim across the waters," said Scarface. But that was before he saw the great salt waters of ocean, in whose waves a man might spend his life swimming through its valleys and mountains. When he saw how vast it was, he fell onto his knees on the beach and wept salt tears. And when he had finished crying, he sat back on his knees and addressed himself to the sky. "No wonder I am called Man of Little," he said, "for I have no luck, no worth, no love, no magic. I don't know why I was ever born. What is my life worth? I wish those eagles had killed me there and then. I cannot be here on the shore of my shortcomings." 2 eagles were flying overhead, and they heard his desperate weeping to the skies, and they swooped down onto him. When Scarface saw them, he shielded his face to protect himself, but he could not protect himself from them. They each held his arms with their talons, and with their beaks they gripped his hair, and they lifted him with a great clattering of wings, higher and higher and higher over the ocean. On the far shore they set him down. "Man of little," they said, "we are so sad to have heard of what you have endured under the eagles in the past, and so we will make what repair and recompense we can. Here you are on the far shore. Follow this yellow path and you will find the sun's lodge. Scarface whooped for joy, and he ran, all fear and despair and starvation forgotten, and made his way along the yellow path. Night had fallen, and only the moon lit his way, and presumably the sun was sleeping in his lodge. Well, just before dawn, Scarface began to see that there were clothes and weapons strewn about around him. There was a headdress made of eagle feathers. There were moccasin shoes. There was a tunic sewn with golden thread, and there was a golden bow with golden arrows. He very carefully walked around them and moved on. Suddenly there was an explosion of leaves from the tree above him, and a young man jumped on his back and knocked him to the ground, and the two of them rolled over and over and over until Scarface fought the young man off. And the young man said, "Why didn't you take all of those things? The really expensive things, why didn't you take them?" Because they weren't mine. They're not mine," said Scarface. "Ha! Well, you must be out of the ordinary honest," said the young man. "Do you know who I am?" Scarface looked bewildered and confused. "You don't know who I am, do you? Well, I am Morning Star, the son of the sun." "My father would really like you because you're so honest. I annoy him all the time. I'm always doing things that he tells me not to, and he gets angry with me. But you, he would like." "Well, I'm not so sure about that," said Scarface with a wry smile. But Morning Star was already jumping up. "Let's go killing whooping cranes," he says. "My dad said that's really not to be done, and he wouldn't want me to do it, so it's probably great fun. Come on, let's go." And before Scarface could do anything, Morning Star had run off. So Scarface got up and ran after him. "Maybe your father advises you not to because it's not a good idea. Maybe you should listen to his advice." But Morning Star had gone. And so Scarface went after him and found himself in a dry shale valley with only a small lake in. And around the lake there was a flock of whooping cranes with their very bony legs and their long spiky beaks dipping into the water to sip. Well, Scarface saw Morning Star dive in amongst the birds, and he started to fight them all, and they shot up into the air, all bony legs and beaks are flying, and suddenly all of them swooped down on Morning Star and began to attack him with their bony beaks and bony legs. Scarface, without any time for fear, just dived in there to fight them off. Oh, the beaks were so sharp they were like nails being malleted in. The legs were so bony that they whipped him, and their feet kicked against him like hooves, and he fought and he fought and he fought until eventually they all flew up into the air and indignantly flew away down the valley. Morning Star lay absolutely still on the ground, bleeding so much. Scarface thought, he must be dead. He lifted him gently and ran with him all the way to the sun's lodge. "What has happened?" said an angry orange face, blotted and spotted with age. "Have you done this?" "Sir, I bring you Morning Star. He went to try and kill whooping cranes, and the birds mistook him for a foolish young man who doesn't listen to his father's advice." Instantly, the anger cooled from the sun's face, and he ushered Scarface in, invited him into the most beautiful lodge that has ever been built on a forest of poles. There Scarface lay Morning Star gently down, and he watched as the sun stroked his hand across Morning Star from head to toe and completely healed him, so that he was just as well as he had already been. And so, of course, he was able to tell his father, the sun, about Scarface, about his out-of-the-ordinary honesty, about how he had been trying to kill whooping cranes, and how Scarface had saved him. "You have saved my son's life," said the sun solemnly to Scarface. "What can I do for you in return?" Once, twice, Scarface opened his mouth to say the words, and although he'd had the courage to come this far, he dared not speak. "You will destroy me where I stand," he said, "if I speak the words in my heart. But you are my guest, and you are my son's best friend, and man of little. Don't you think I recognise who you are? Don't you think sometimes I glance down as I pass over in the sky overhead? And don't you think I sometimes listen? I was overhead on the day that you spoke to Marvellous Girl. Then heal my face and let me marry her," Scarface blurted out. The sun looked at him long and hard, then reached out a hand as spotted and old as a leopard's, and chucked him under the chin. "I will give you food and water for your journey, and a bowl of water to wash in." Of his request, the sun said nothing. And it was not until Scarface looked into the bowl of water that the sun had given him that he saw that his scar had been perfectly restored and healed. Marvellous Girl saw it too when he returned home, and she reached out a hand and stroked his cheek. She didn't notice the headdress he was wearing, the tunic with gold thread, the golden bow and arrows, and the moccasin shoes. "Tell the tribeswomen to prepare for a wedding," she said. "Tomorrow, I think, at noon, when the sun is directly overhead." Their firstborn son they called Eagle, and the 4 sons that were born afterwards they called Polecat, Bear, Beaver and Wolverine, and their daughter they called Woman Who Loves Sunshine. Hope you enjoyed that story. See you soon.